Position to weakness thanks for that.
I believe in surgery.
Yeah, you've had that surgery?
No, I believe in surgery. If it can fix it, do it.
Yeah, but I agree.
I did have spinal surgery.
As a last, really?
Yeah.
As a last resort, like they were gonna they're fusing them with like metal rods. And
Yeah, I have a metal rod.
you do?
Yeah.
Which one? Where?
The L1, L2.
Oh, higher up. Wow.
Lower.
You said L1.
L1. Lower.
Well,
Yeah.
L5 is the lowest one. L1 is higher up.
It is?
Yeah.
Then get cortisone
Like
shots.
L5 is S1, and L5 is right above the sacrum.
My friend just had that surgery too.
You're unstoppable.
Yeah, my best
very
friend just had that same
Yeah.
surgery.
Yeah.
And
The
he's
rod
fine.
in it.
He's complete
Yeah,
100%.
Mine just now, I just visited.
Yeah, he got 100% recovery actually.
It's like
No
long,
pain,
hard
nothing.
surgery.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Been sending you healing prayers.
Yes.
Hi everybody, we're about to start. A little bit late, but we're gonna learn a little bit about the bones of Joseph and Serach. Some of the folklore on someone named Serach, about Asher. You've heard of her, I'm sure. The daughter of Asher who never died. We'll see. You'll like it, I think. I hope. If not, I should have stayed home.
Don't you dare not get better. We need you.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I'm sure. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Oh, it's just
just to that. So I don't know if who's moderating? Is it Gil?
It's me, Caroline Hawthorne. Yeah.
Caroline?
Yes.
Okay, I haven't even met you. Thank you.
No.
We're sending the sheets to you in a minute, okay?
Mhm.
And then share it with the Chevra, okay? Everybody's been so patient. Thank you so much. And did you guys do the brachot on Torah already?
No.
So let's start with the lessons over Torah. I think Caroline will put them up on the screen. Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Can you guys see it? Baruch. So, Caroline, as soon as you get the sheets from Eden, you could share, that would be great. There's this remarkable part of the folklore of the midrashic corpus is this very mysterious figure called Serach, and she is very much connected to the story of Joseph and his bones, which we'll get to in a little bit. And she's also very much connected to the story of Tu B'Shvat. Hopefully we'll get to that, of the story of the near of the trees. And she appears like as a figure whose story is completely in the white space of the Torah. It's not. There's only a couple of little verses, the black fire, to hang her presence upon. But she's used in as a figure in remarkable ways. It's like as some transmitter of secrets, like someone who knows how to say something in a way that it can be heard. So you'll see the first appearance serves a function in the Torah that we didn't know we needed, but the Midrash imagines that something's missing from the story of Jacob and the news that's reported to him about his long lost son. So you look at source number 1, and friends, I'm sorry online you guys are waiting so patiently, and now you're waiting again, and I'm trying to give as much texture as possible before you get the sheets. so you're at least following along, you can track with us. So we're in chapter 45 of the book of Breshit, verse 25, where the brothers now, the brothers have already been told, they already had the great reveal with Joseph, and they leave Egypt, and they come back to the land of Canaan, via Alumi Mitzrayim, verse 25, they went up from Egypt. Vayavo, they came, right, Eretz Canaan, they came to the land of Canaan. El Yaakov Avihem, to Jacob their father. Vayagidu lo, and they told him, they reported to him, saying, O Joseph Chai. O Joseph Chai. Joseph is yet alive, still alive. And not only that, and he's also happens to be the ruler of the entire land of Egypt. And you can imagine, imagine what happens to Jacob. Vayafag libo. His heart, it's a great word in Hebrew. Vayafag, like his heart became numb. You could say he had a heart attack. Like something, like he lo yamin lahem. He didn't believe them. Why would he believe him? It's like absolute crazy story. Then verse 27, Vayidabru elav, and they spoke to him. He's called Divrei Yosef asher diber aleim. All of the words of Joseph, which is such a regnant phrase. Like what words? What words of Joseph would be the right words that would help him believe them? It's like it's left unsaid, right? All the words of Joseph, asher diber aleim, that Joseph had said to them, right? And then, as if that weren't enough, Vayares ha'agalos. He saw the Rolls Royces that they came back in. They didn't leave in with a royal retinue, and he thought like that's highly improbable that they would come back with all of the wagons that they came back, that Joseph had sent them to carry him, meaning Joseph had sent these things along for a private jet to bring his father back. And he for him probably like Occam's razor. It's like that's probably the most likely. He didn't just happen upon a private jet. So maybe it's true. But and Jacob's spirit was enlivened. He revived. Right now, it doesn't say that he believed them, and therefore it just says that his life force was its own proof that something in him believed this was true. We're still waiting for the seats, I think, over there to happen. So, I'm sorry. This midrash is source number 2. If you turn the page, we're going to go a little bit later, friends, and I'm sorry, we'll miss a little bit of the beginning of the Tefillah, but we'll go a little bit later. This is from Sefer HaYashar. It's an early midrashic source, and it seeks to fill in, like midrash always does, to fill in the unspoken and the unwritten, what's between the lines, between the letters. And this one in particular happens to be one of the most human midrashim I've ever come across. Midrash always humanizes the Torah, and like it asks questions of the Torah that are profoundly, we might say very humanistic, we also might say they're very modern, very the way that we might think, very psychologically astute. So here, let's read this one together. It's very beautiful. And when Joseph had finished giving them his orders, he turned and went back into Egypt. And the sons of Jacob went to the land of Canaan in joy and happiness to their father. That's not written, by the way, in the Torah. It doesn't say that they went in joy and happiness. And when they came to the boundaries of the land, they said to one another, this is not in the Torah, what shall we do in bringing this matter before our father? For if we impart it to him suddenly, which it seems they do, in other words, the text seems to be extremely, like this doesn't seem to be their concern. when they come back. It says, they came to him and they dropped it on him like a bomb, like a truth bomb. Right? They literally look back at the verse. It says they came to Jacob and they said, "Oh, Joseph Chai." It doesn't say anything, like, there's no preamble. There's no that whole ruse that he did, and remember the viceroy? He was really not nice. We called him all kinds of names. We didn't want to go back to him. He was cruel. Remember that one? Well, it's a really crazy turn of events, Pop. It turns out we didn't recognize him. I mean, he got older. I don't know what's wrong with us. I mean, we should have recognized him. He has a spitting image of Rachel and you, and looks just like you. A lot less hair, maybe, but he's an Egyptian, and he was wearing different clothing and put on a couple of pounds, and he had children. But guess what? He's our little brother. The one that we said died. He's alive. That's not what they're saying. So but here in the Midrash, they stop at the boundary to the land. Everybody online, you're hearing this? Some of the words in the Midrash. He says they stopped and they speak to each other. They say, "Man na'aseh b'davar hazeh lifnei avinu." Wow, we have to handle this well. This could be really dangerous for Dad. If we impart to him suddenly and tell him all about it, he will be greatly astounded at our words and he will refuse to listen to us. Which is, of course, what happened. And when they went on, until they approached their houses, they met Serach coming towards them. And the damsel was exceedingly beautiful and wise, and a skilled player on the harp. This is nowhere in the Torah. And Serach, of course, we don't know her except by the genealogy. She's named as one of Asher's children, but we don't know anything about her. And they called to her, and she came to them, and she kissed them, and they took her and gave her a harp, saying to her, "Go, we pray thee, before our father, and sit down before him, and strike this harp, and speak unto him according to these words." And they instructed her concerning what she had to say, and she ran quickly to Jacob, and she sat down before him, and she sang, and she played beautifully upon the harp, and she sang in the sweetness of her voice. This is her song. "Joseph, my uncle, is alive, and he reigns over all the land of Egypt." You can hear it almost in the Gaelic. I wish it would be. I wish it would be the sound. And she repeated these words, and Jacob heard these words, her words, and it pleased him greatly. And when he heard her sing it twice and 3 times, the heart of Jacob was possessed by joy to the sweetness of her voice, and the Spirit of God came over him, and he knew that all her words were true. And Jacob blessed Sarah for singing these words before him. And he said, "My daughter," really my granddaughter, but my daughter, BT, he says, "May death never prevail against thee forever. For you have revived my spirit. Only repeat this song once more before me, for you have caused me gladness with your words." And she sang once more the same words, right? And Jacob listened, and he was pleased, and he rejoiced, and the Spirit of God came over him. So far, so good, right? It's stunningly beautiful, right? That she becomes a model of how to tell someone news in a particular way. Maybe also, of course, bad news too. Maybe but here there's something about her delivery and about the harp and the way that she's singing. Sarah here becomes someone who knows how to tell a secret or tell something different, say something in a way that it can be heard. And that's her, like, one of her qualities. This becomes also the source for the already existing rabbinic folk that Serach was one of those individuals who never died in the tradition, like Chanoch and like Elijah the prophet, right? Serach, because why does she become the source? Why is this source necessary? Because in the genealogies that happen, the Bible has many genealogies, right? And can tell you the history, who's here and when. So Serach appeared in a genealogy that is much later in the book of Joshua and in other places, she appears in genealogies as alive already, still. But she was born much earlier in the Torah. She should have died like everybody else. And yet she's counted as appearing. You see in many places in the Bible, she appears later on in kind of a record of who was alive. It's like they're seeing her like, Forrest Gump. She's like in the timeline. She should not be alive. So the rabbis have to figure out a way to include her in the pantheon of biblical figures whom death never touches them. And this becomes a source for the reason why she was honored with that, or she merited being an immortal. She becomes an immortal. She becomes immortal, and here's the great twist, which is beautiful. Her immortality is a reward for having even the news that someone whom they thought had died is yet alive. And so she's blessed now with also, no one ever has to tell anyone that Serach died. She gets rewarded with being the one who never, ever has to die. And so here she is in this remarkable story, in this remarkable midrash. And then the end of it, of course, is a bit shocking too. Because even though Jacob believed her, right? And while she was speaking, the sons came before him with horses and chariots and royal garments and servants running to meet them. And he saw his sons dressed in these royal garments and all the good things that Joseph had sent to them. And they said to him, "Be you informed that our brother Joseph lives, and that he rules over the whole land of Egypt, and it is he who has spoken unto us all we have told you." And Jacob heard all these words of his sons, and his heart fainted, for he believed them not. So he believed her, but he didn't believe them. Something about them was clearly, something. It's remarkable, right?
Well, these sons have a shady past.
They do. Right? And maybe he gets it. Like he doesn't. When I read this midrash, I was just thinking, at this point, she should have softened him up that he would believe him. That was why they sent her. But it turns out that he doesn't believe them at all. He believes her, only her.
And her father is one of the brothers.
Exactly. So, Asher walks in and then he's like, no. But when Sarah says it, something about
Yeah, my sweet granddaughter.
yeah, and also the way she did it, with the harp, the music, and the sweetness. I'm so taken by that. And then he says, and until he saw all the Joseph. In other words, the midrash goes back to the typical, right, the way it says in the Torah. Until he saw that Joseph had given them, and all the signs he had spoken to them, and then they unpacked all the things before him, and they displayed all that Joseph had sent, and they gave to every one of them what Joseph had sent him. And Jacob knew that they had spoken the truth, rejoiced greatly on account of his son. So she was she was a softener anyway. He still didn't believe. He would have died probably if in other words, the midrash adds an entire layer of the story, so that when Jacob finally hears it from the brothers, he still doesn't. His heart still becomes numb, but perhaps if Sarah hadn't showed up, he would have died, something like that. And she was necessary here as a part of the story. Now, if you turn the page, I'm sorry, maybe friends online, are you guys there? Can we, are you still tracking with us? Can you do me a favor? Can you go ask Eden if she's sending the PDF to Carolyn, because I feel badly. I'm sorry.
The PDF has already been posted.
The PDF was posted?
The PDF is in the chat, yes.
Oh, it's in the chat, but can you share the screen, Caroline? Because some people are not downloading are people online downloading the PDF? Or are they waiting for the screen share? Are you able to do that?
We have the link.
Well, I could do it. 1 second.
Yes, I can. I can share the PDF, yeah.
I could do it also. You know what? I could do it also.
I got it.
And we have the link to Sefaria.
Yes, we can.
That's great. Thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Does Sarah mean something?
Yeah. What does Sarah mean? Does anybody know? Let's ask. Is Rabbi Rabbeinu Asher on? Asher Chaim? Speaking of Asher and Sarah? I can't see.
Does Serach come from something like aroma?
Yeah, it has a lot of different meanings, and aroma, like a serach rab, it's like a bad smell, but also there's it has a term in connected to agriculture, but I can't remember right now. Somebody can look it up while we're all look it up. I remember it being connected to something agricultural.
Just a related question. I remember a few weeks ago we went through all of these genealogies, and it was sons, and there's one daughter who was a Sarah with an E, but am I muddling it up, or is that the same person?
Dina. She appears though in genealogies of as a child of Asher.
Okay.
And she then appears later on too, which is, I should have put it in here, but friends, I'm sorry. But let's look at this source 3, which is on the third side. There you go. Thank you. No, there you had it. There you go. There you go. I don't think that the numbers came through, but that's it. Thank you. Vayagidu lo limor od Yosef Chai. This is from another midrashic source. Rabbanan amru im anu amrim lo tchila Yosef kayam shema tifrach nishmatha. If we tell him right away Joseph is alive, perhaps he'll have a stroke, or his soul will fly away. What did they do? Ma asu amru leSerach bat Asher. They told Serach bat Asher. Sarah, the daughter of Asher, tell our father Jacob that Joseph is alive and he's in Egypt. So what did she do? She waited till he was standing in prayer, right? She waited until Jacob was praying. And she said in a quizzical tone of wonder, Yosef b'Mitzrayim, Yuldu al habirkayim, Menashe ve'Ephraim. She said these 3 lines that have a poetic meter to them. Right? Can you hear it? Yosef b'Mitzrayim. Joseph is in Mitzrayim, Egypt. Yuldulo al birkaim. Born to him on his knees, meaning right from his loins. Menashe ve'Ephraim. These the 2 names of his boys. Pag libo. His heart failed while he was standing in prayer. When he finished his prayer, he saw the wagons, and immediately the spirit of Jacob came back to life. This is another attempt to use, like, again, in a similar vein, right? You can see the difference between the 2 midrashic sources. They're slightly different. They both use the image of a woman, right? Of a woman having to tell her grandfather, a grandchild having to say to the grandfather, but it's significant that it's her gender, that she's a woman. And that she has to tell him hard news, but she thinks strategically on how to do it. She uses song. She uses timing. She waits for the right time. He's standing in prayer. Jacob is standing in prayer. Presumably, what do you think that means? Why is Jacob standing in prayer a good time to tell him?
At ease.
He's at ease. Maybe he's at ease.
Receptive.
Maybe he's receptive. Maybe he's got strength from the divine connection that he's now experiences. Right, and still, nonetheless, it doesn't fully work, right? Because he still his heart goes out. Which in the first midrashic source, his heart doesn't go out until the boys, right? Right. Here it goes out with her too, and here there's no mention of the boys coming back, of the sons coming back, the brothers coming back and telling them. It says that he saw the agalot, he saw the wagons. Either way, there's something beautiful happening here, which is just without getting to Serach as mythologically, there's just an appreciation in the midrashic sources that it couldn't be that the way the Torah tells a story wouldn't work. Like the midrashim are struggling with what feels almost like the cruelty of this depiction in the Torah. So like the Torah can't. The rabbis are like, that wouldn't work. That can't happen. No. That would kill their father. They're like, it's almost like a sense of that the rabbis are coming along to do some pastoral care for Jacob and introducing music and the harp and the rhyming meter. What do they tell? What in the song that she creates? What does she add? I mean, in Gaelic, it would be like, and Joseph was, in our Irish, she was in Mitzrayim, he was in Egypt. But lo, he's not only alive, but he has grandchildren. It's like what she adds. Like Joseph has children, right? In the first song, she just said Joseph is alive, right? And the facts. But here, she adds something to him, like you're a grandfather, right? Not only is Joseph alive, but the lineage of Joseph didn't die, right? Like Rachel is alive in Joseph and the children born, and he still, even though he's in prayer, I can't, But then he saw the agalot, he saw the wagon. So I want to open it up because these are too beautiful. Then we'll go to the next piece of her amazing story. I'll open up to a couple of comments on these first two midrashim. Participants, raise your hand. I thought I saw. Yeah, Bakia.
Just wondering if there's any difference in, we see Sarah with a hat or a hat. I haven't looked at the Hebrew.
I think it's written with a sin,
and
resh,
later she's Sarah with an H, with a hey.
No, it's always Sarah. I think sometimes they put the H as a chet in with the way they transliterate H.
Okay,
Sometimes
so we're not supposed to take any interest in the fact that her name is now a little different.
Maybe, it's interesting. Once you say that, it could be that I'm wrong. I should look, but she would almost make her name sound like Sarah, written as Sarah, right? Because it's sin. It's not a samach. It's a shin. A sin. Sarah, Sarah, right? That would be very interesting. I should look that up because then that would also give some texture. Because Sarah is the one in the midrashic lore to whom bad news was given and who died because the bad news was given in the wrong way. Right? In the story of the Akedah, of the binding of Isaac, like the whole midrashic folklore around how Satan came to Sarah and told her that Isaac died almost, and some midrashim see that as the source of her leaving the world. And so maybe the element of Serach and Sarah, like now this granddaughter becomes the one who knows how to tell difficult things in a way that they can be heard.
Wow. Sorry, because previously Sarai, with a A-I, and then later she achieves Sarah with a hey.
Right, exactly. So it's very interesting. Yeah, I looked that up. Okay, anybody? Yes, Tomas, and then is there anybody online who wants to ask a question or no? Yeah.
Not an analysis, just a very brief anecdote that resonates. One of the hardest tasks I ever had was to tell my twin brother that our dad had died. And he was trying to get to our dad, and I was there by his side. And I was like, come on, Nick, get here. And, it didn't work out. And so I was like, fuck, I have to call him. He needs to know as soon as possible. He can't discover that when he gets here. He needs to know on the way. There's something about receiving the news from me rather than seeing it with his eyes, hoping to see our dad. And hearing about this poem from Sarah, one of the few moments of grace that I managed, and I really don't take credit for it because it took me by surprise, is I called him, and instead of telling him the news right away, I told him 3 things we had done together. Surprisingly, goofy things since infancy that my twin and I have done. It was remember when we did this together and we were born together and we did that? And I was leading up to saying, well, we didn't get to do this together, but we got to do all these other things. We didn't get to say goodbye together. And by the time I got through my 3rd goofy anecdote of the things we'd done together, of course he knew, he already had been told by the my version of Sarah's song. And I wasn't consciously remembering this story, but perhaps I was in other ways. And I don't know. It resonates so strongly. I put it into the room.
It's a very beautiful thing because I think that there's so much death right now all around us, and people I know. For example, a very, very well-known Torah teacher in the Jewish community named Rabbi Yaffa Epstein, dear friend of mine. We found out 2 weeks ago that that her nephew was killed in Gaza. And I kept thinking about, I reached out to her, obviously I wondered how she heard the news, and in general, how do people hear, how were we telling this news? And she's 9 months pregnant 2 weeks ago, and Baruch Hashem, she had a beautiful baby, a girl, and like a week after her nephew was passed away, was killed, and so just kept thinking about that news and how it, how do you tell people, and all the times that I was in the room, unfortunately, when a family in our community, a young father died tragically, at least over a decade ago, and I was there when they told his 2 young children, and I think I love this midrash because it's the incredulity of the midrash births this creative pastoral moment that was not obvious from the text, and it's just the rabbi struggling with what would seem to be almost a cruel way to tell someone good news, right? Like feeding a starving person too quickly.
Yes.
And and so I love that the rabbis imagine this serach, and so she becomes a candidate for knowing how to tell someone a deep secret, and to tell it in the right way. And I love that you brought that very personal. Thank you for that. That was very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, I'm interested in just what you just said. You used the word imagining Serach.
Yes.
And I'm interested in, I'm interested in this move just generally of like imagination therapy. Like that for, it just seems very unusual to me, and I don't know how many other times they do this, where like they, instead of interpreting a text, interpreting what the text seems to be saying, they imagine a completely different text. In order for this, because of this emotional difficulty, and that seems unorthodox. And so I'm curious.
So let's be clear. The rabbinic tradition that becomes, for many of us, when we think about rabbinic Judaism, until the Reform movement or the Enlightenment birthed various ways of interpreting Torah, like the rabbinic project is an unorthodox project. It's an absolutely heretical project, and it's sanctioned because the rabbis, in some remarkable circuitous or circular reasoning, imagine that the Torah gives them permission to embellish the Torah. Like midrash is born from either the belief or the faith in, or maybe it's true, like that there was a tradition, or the rabbis believing fully that God had sanctioned the expansion of Torah under the rabbinic interpretive, modalities, and so it's extremely unorthodox to imagine counterfactual text or and to add to the Torah, like you're adding to a text that said about itself, you're not allowed to add to it.
Right, but also, if I may, you used other words there, interpret, right, yes, and expand.
Yeah.
But I would say that those seem more consistent, right? If I were making an argument about justifying that project.
Right.
But then I would say that this goes beyond either interpreting or expanding, arguably.
There are
the word that's halfway between interpretation and expansion is interpolation.
Yeah.
So it's the expansion within. It's going inward, but also finding more space.
Right, but this is finding.
Right, but I'll
this is
say
contradicting.
Well, I'll say that actually is not uncommon either, and that's what's so remarkable in rabbinic text. It isn't interpretation itself is often depends. The interpretive mode depends on the replacing of a word with a word that's not there. The rabbis, for example, in many cases, say that the word should not be read this way; it should be read this way, and they change the word. Oh, don't read it as this, but read it as that, and they actually add a letter, or they transform a letter into another letter, and it's completely subversive in the deepest sense. It subverts the verse, right? The verse is subverted, and the rabbis will replace, whole cloth, and even when they're interpreting legal text, not just in this agadic expansion. So I think that you're onto something in terms of when the rabbis imagine an entirely other scenario, why these become part of the corpus and not part of some heretical corpus. Like, what is the New Testament but a heretical interpretation of the text, right? And the rabbi said, well, not that, right? That, that you can't do, right? You can't say that verse in Isaiah is talking about Jesus and so on. So, like, how they, what were their own rules and where those come from is also fascinating. We should, and at some point, have a whole year-long discussion of the construction of the rabbinic universe. But for now, I have to go on to the next text.
Understood. Just one sentence.
Yeah, one second.
But going back, what about this process itself, the imaginative process?
Yes.
Why isn't that part of our corpus?
Well,
right?
This is.
I understand this is now a text. This is now its own text.
Right.
But I'm saying their process in imagining this other thing. Why didn't that be
in our current in the current expression of Judaism that is not Orthodox any longer, to the left, whatever, the right, left, whatever, to the more let's say less Orthodox or rigid interpretation. In that universe, the Midrashic universe of conservative reform, reconstructionist, renewal Judaism isn't exactly that. Right. We've arrogated to ourselves the right to create our own midrashim. You have feminists, and you have mystics, and you have so it is alive and well, right? It's alive and well outside of the Orthodox world, and maybe even in the Orthodox world, but they wouldn't say they're doing it. But okay, so let's, if we could turn to the next source. I know there was I want to come into the bones of Joseph here. So source number 4, if you see it on page, there are no page numbers, but source number 4, you see it? It says Sota. You see it? Sota 13a?
Yeah.
Got it? Okay. So we went from that story of Serach with Jacob and the brothers to another moment of Joseph. How did Moses know where Joseph was buried? It's a very big. The Nile is a big. It's a big river. So Serach bat Asher. Here her name is written with a Sanach. Yeah. So Serach, the daughter of Asher, remained from that generation. Now that's already amazing, right? Serach is appearing in the time of Moses, but she should have died already, by any count.
So that's like 300 years?
Yeah, easily. Yeah, at least 210, 400, depends on that. Yeah, so a couple of centuries.
Yeah.
So she's nishtayra the Oso Ador. She's still there from the generation of the originals, the OGs. Halach Moshe etzla, and Moshe went to her. Amar la, he said to her, Klumat yodat echan Yosef kavur. Like, don't you know? Like, do you know anything? Do you know? Klum means the opposite of what it is. Klum means nothing, but she says it means, might you know something about where Joseph is buried? Amra lo, Aron shel mateches asulo Mitzrayim. She says to him, they fashioned a metal casket for him, and they put it in the Nilos, v'kava'u b'Nilos anar, kidesh yisbarchu miyamav, or meimav. They placed him into the Nile River so that the waters of the Nile would be blessed because of Joseph. Joseph is a blessed figure, and so they buried him to bless the waters. Fascinating, right? Kidesh barchu meimav halach Moshe ve'amar al sfas Nilos, and Moshe went and stood by the bank of the Nile. Amar lo Yosef, Yosef. Love this. He said out loud, Joseph, Joseph. Right? So often the repetition of a biblical character's name, right, is a call to presence, a call to arrive. Moshe, Moshe, right? Avram. Yosef, Yosef. Higia ate. Time has come. Shenishba. That God swore, Sha'ani go'el etchem, and God said that I would redeem you. V'higia hashva she'ishpat et Israel, and this oath that you swore your brothers, right? Before Joseph died, he said to them, swear to me that when you will one day be redeemed, that you will have passed on this oath that you took to bring my bones out. And so Moses knows this oath and says, right, the time has come. Ima tamar e'atzmecha mutav im lav hareni anu minukim mishvotecha. Says, he said to them, if you show yourself, great. But if you don't, then we are clear from the oath. And immediately, the Arono shel Yosef, the casket of Joseph, it surfaced.
Just like the basket of Moses.
Just like the basket of Moses. So Moses is the right. So it's so good. It's so good because the whole, it's exactly it. Like the entire story begins with Joseph being thrown, being discarded, and the story will only end when he can no longer advocate for himself, but there's a remnant, a residue of that promise the brothers made, that they would not leave him outside, and that they would honor that promise, through time. And then, like, the Nilos comes in, the Nile, which is again the place where the height of Israel's the children of Israel's captivity and the punishment, right, sees its zenith, it's like its apex, because they're killing babies in the Nile. But the one baby that isn't killed in the Nile, of course, is Moses, and they can't leave until this Joseph right now is in the Nile, and it's not for death, it's for life, to bring him with them. And it's just as beautiful. And Serach, clearly, she's the one that knows, right? So he went to her, and she's like she'd be like some woman, like, somewhere in the forest, there's a seer, she's this holy woman, and she knows the secret, right?
She's also the connection to the people who made the promise.
And she's the connection. Yeah. She was like in the room, as it were. Yeah. She was there. And so they have to pass by Serach. Look at source 5. 9 people entered the Garden of Eden alive. These are the 9. This is the list. Chanoch, Elijah, the Messiah, Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, Hiram, the king of Tsur, Eved Melech, the Ethiopian, Yabet, Benosh Rabbi Yehuda, Anasi, Batia Bat Paro. That's amazing, right? Batia was the one who saved Moses, right? And she merited to live, eternal life. And Serach Bat Asher. And there are some who say Yoshua ben Levi. Okay. Now, if you look at source 6, this is again in chapter 46 of the book of Genesis. We see the children of Asher. This comes back to your question, Thomas. Right? This is right. You see, this is where she's mentioned. Serach Achotam. Serach is the sister. And there it's with the sin, right? That's the way it's like. So it looks a little bit like Sarah. Now, she's also mentioned in source 7, which shows the longevity, right? She's also mentioned as in chapter 26 of Bamidbar, of Numbers, where they're mentioning the names of the tribes, the lineage, and she should not be there. She should not be there. Right, in the children in that generation, and you see that Rashi mentions her on that verse, saying that she also lived forever. She remained alive, based on the text that we had earlier. Now, I wonder if we have time. One second. I want to see which one. We have time for one more. 1 second. No. Okay, let's look at source 12. Another source about this remarkable woman. And then maybe we'll have to call it the morning, and Hashem should forgive me for being late and we didn't get to all of it. But so just look at source 12, okay? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Chamisha osios shenichpelu b'chol ha'osos shebetorah kulam lesod geulos. The 5 letters of the Torah, which alone of all the letters in the Torah are of a double shape, all of those letters pertain to the mystery of redemption. The pay, Israel was redeemed from Egypt with the letter pay, because the word pakod pakarati, that's the official terminal, like the language of the pakod pakarati means that we will be remembered, and those are the 2 words, the technical words that were used when Moses came back to redeem them. He said the words pakod pakarati. Those are the words, and these letters, these 5 letters, were delivered only to our father Abraham. And our father Abraham delivered them to Isaac, and Isaac delivered them to Jacob. But Jacob delivered the mystery of the redemption to Joseph, as it is said, but God will surely visit you. Pakod yifkod, Elohim etkei. And Joseph, his son, delivered the secret of the redemption to his brothers. Asher, the son of Jacob, delivered the mystery of the redemption to Serach, his daughter. When Moses and Aaron came to the elders of Israel to perform the signs in their sight, the elders of Israel went to Serach, the daughter of Asher. And they said to her, a certain man has come and he has performed signs in our sight. You know, this and this he did. And she said to them, there is no reality in the signs. She said, those signs mean nothing. In other words, she was the expert on discerning whether or not Moses was a true prophet. Not the elders. Because the elders were, the Torah, it's the elders who didn't believe him. They said, who is it, But what's not in the text is that the elders, in between the letters of the actual text, went to this woman, they like in the Matrix, like they were like a prophet, and she was the one, and
She's the oldest.
She's the eldest. They already know at this point that she lives forever, and they were like, he's got some good signs going on. We better go talk to Serach. And so they go talk to Serach, right? And then Serach says to them, no, don't trust those signs with the miracles. But then they say to her, he said the words, pakod yifkod, God will visit you, will remember you. And she said to them, he's the man who will redeem Israel in the future of Egypt. Because I heard it from my father, Asher, who received it from his father, Jacob, who received it from Isaac, who received it from Abraham, that those are the words. And I am the keeper of the secrets. I know that. She said, no, okay, he's kosher. For with the people of right away, the people believed in Moses, and they heard, and they visited the children of Israel. Netzerach was a favorite of our dear teacher and beloved Rabbi Yitzchak Buxbaum, who actually, if you go on Amazon, has a whole book on Serach that he compiled. And I remember so vividly when Yitzchak would teach us about Serach every year around the time of the Tu B'Shvat Seder, which there's going to be a Tu B'Shvat meal after services today. And there's a connection between Serach and Tu B'Shvat also, but we can't go into it right now. And I thought it was, last night when I spoke about the bones of Joseph. And every year I come to that phrase, the exhuming of the bones of Joseph, and I just can't get over it. Like I just want to stay on there for forever. I just want the image of that casket. There's a beautiful midrash that we're not going to get to where in the Gemara where throughout their journey in the desert they had 2 aronot. Like the word Aron, A-R-O-N, or Aleph Resh Vav Nun, right? Vahiben Soha Aron, Vayomer Moshe. The Aron has a double meaning in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, and also in the Bible. Right? In the Bible, the Aron can be a casket. Right? At the end of the very last verse of the book of Genesis is that Joseph is sealed in an Aron, which we learn in this midrash was made of metal, and they put it in the water. It's interesting to put a metal casket, by the way, in the water. That being said. The Aron, a Kodesh, is also another usage. It basically means a box, but of course, a box for dead bodies and a box for a living Torah feel like they're at opposite poles of one another. But that's exactly what happened in the desert when God gives the Israelites the instructions for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle. He tells them to build an Aron, to build an aron, out of acacia wood. And so this aron that was being carried in the desert, one of them had the stones of the tablets, the broken ones also, and the whole ones. And they had another aron next to it, which is the aron of the bones of Joseph. And in the mythic imagination of the rabbis in the Talmud, they imagined that they're like somebody asking, somebody who's not one of, like somebody who was seeing the scene, not an Israelite, who I don't know who had seen it, but they imagine someone looking from the outside and going, it's strange to have these two aronot, these two boxes. Like, I understand the box for the Torah, but why are you carrying this box with the bones of this Joseph guy? And the rabbis say, the reason why is Kiyem Zeh, the one who is in the box, right, Joseph, fulfilled everything that was in the other box. He lived by everything in the other box. Now, that could be polemical, because when you read the Joseph story, the last thing you think is that Joseph was a God-fearing, Jew. First of all, it's anachronistic. They weren't, for the rabbis to say that he fulfilled the Torah before it was given is kind of weird. But that's nothing new for the rabbis. They do that all the time. They imagine that Abraham fulfilled the whole Torah and Isaac. So what they were trying to say was that Joseph, and this becomes a very, very important rabbinic theme. It's repeated over and over again. That Joseph was like a Marano, or like we would say a converso. That Joseph was a secret Jew. That Joseph, even though on the outside it looked like he had abandoned his father's ways, the ways of his father and his family, Joseph becomes a paragon, right? Later, more like, let's say, more critical and literarily maybe more accurate readings are actually, problematize this image of Joseph. That he seems to be cruel in his way that he played the game with his brothers, the text seems to be like he walked away, right? And he wasn't sure if he wanted to know that, his father again. But in the rabbinic reconstruction of Joseph, Joseph is the paragon of one who could not publicly display his Jewishness, but was secretly an adherent of all that it meant to be a Jew. And so they reframe and say, everything that was in this box, right, was fulfilled by the one that's in that box, right? And in a way, the rabbis say that Joseph was Mekadeshim Shemayim B'tzina, and Judah, his brother Judah, was Mekadeshim Shemayim B'farhesia. Like that Judah and Joseph, who become the two kingdoms, represent the Jew who can publicly elevate God's name, because Judah, of course, very publicly was taken to task for the way that he was dealing with Tamar, and she rebuked him, and he publicly said, I made a mistake. And so his name has the name of God in it. Judah has all four letters of God's name in it. Yod He Vav Daled Hey.
And also ownership.
And Joseph was Mekadesh Shem Shemayim B'tzina. That Joseph was sanctified God's name in private when